Hey guys, Comic Boom here to talk about the most disappointing DC titles of 2023. And boy, this was actually a pretty easy list to come up with. DC, in fairness, I think that DC had actually a relatively good year, but they put out a lot of comic books. And I'm actually doing my top 25 DC titles for 2023, and I had a lot of fun putting it together. It was actually hard to decide which ones were better than others because I thought DC had a pretty good year overall, but they did have some stinkers, and in particular they had two really bad big events with Lazarus Planet and Night Terrors, and a lot of garbage flowed from that. But there was disappointments, but for the most part, I came up with, for myself, 14 disappointing titles of 2023. And of course, I could probably have come up with more than that, but I just wanted to give a quick overview of what I thought was, what was the most disappointing. I'm just going to give snapshots and overviews of some of these things. And I want to emphasize here, when I say most disappointing, please note that some of these, I might use the word worst, but some of these aren't terrible. They're just disappointing. So I like the euphemism of disappointment as opposed to saying that's utter trash, right? These were disappointing titles. Okay, some of them were trash. I'll tell you which ones are trash. But most of these here were just disappointing. They could have been better, and I was expecting more, and unfortunately, they weren't all that good. Now, none of these are in a particular order, but I will tell you what number one is. But I'm not going to start at number one here. Let's just start over here with Wonder Woman back. Yeah, we'll start with Wonder Woman. Now, until Tom King took it over, we had this year, Tom King's got about 4 issues of Wonder Woman that are completed this year. Wonder Woman got better under Tom King. I got issues with Tom King. Certainly I'm not, Wonder Woman is not a title that's... Wonder Woman is not a title that's in my top 25 this year, even with Tom King starting off. And I don't mind what Tom King's doing, but he's still unfortunately engaging in a lot of the tropes and he's too heavy-handed on some of the misandry and just way too heavy-handed on the gender aspects and the man hatred and all that nonsense. And I'm not really into it. And I thought the introduction of Trinity she's fairly unlikable, but she's getting a little bit better in the backups to his 4 issues of Wonder Woman. So it's not bad. His Wonder Woman's not bad, but I'm a little disappointed in it, to be honest. And, of course, the ongoing disappointment of Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad under Wonder Woman with the vile milk drinkers and just that entire year of Wonder Woman flowing from last year's Trial of the Amazons into 2023, there's a reason why Wonder Woman, I guess sometimes, I think what happened is that even DC editorial, which was, we can say what we want about DC editorial, but I think Wonder Woman reached a new low that even they were maybe surprised to see her fall under Clunrad. It was just that bad a title. It became a running joke, both online and certainly in my comic shop. Wonder Woman it became a joke of a title with Wonder Woman flowing. This is a woman that out of Dark Crisis, remember out of Death Metal, she supposedly was supposed to come back and save the universe again from an impending threat. She died. She gave herself up to the cosmic gods after defeating the Batman who laughs. And instead, she comes back. She resurrects her tyrannical Greek gods instead of actually helping humanity and resurrecting maybe, I don't know, souls of dead children. She's going to go and resurrect the souls of corrupt and evil gods. And of course, she manages to piss off the god of chaos. Trial of the Amazons arises, and then she comes back, and then she decides to go after vile milk drinkers and Dr. Psycho storylines, and just cheats on Steve Trevor, and then just I don't even want to talk about the storyline, but horribly disappointing to say the very least. So Wonder Woman is kind of a disaster. Hopefully Tom King will right that ship. We'll see how he does. Titans under Tom Taylor, I thought was also a very disappointing this year. The just coming out of Dark Crisis, the Justice League decides to give up being the Justice League and then hand the mantle over to Nightwing. And Nightwing, for some reason, thinks it's very important that him and the Titans, apparently the de facto leader of the Titans is apparently Beast Boy. Yes, let's go rescue trees, the endangered tree species in Borneo. They were basically glorified environmentalists. For the first 6 issues of Titans, it was just beautifully drawn by Nicola Scott. Fantastic artist. Fantastic art. Some of the best art that DC has. Nicola Scott, you're a great artist. Unfortunately, in service of just a story that was utterly boring. It was boring. That's why it was disappointing. Is Titans a bad comic book? No. It was just very, very, very boring. Wally West got killed in issue 1 of Titans, and I can't believe how boring it was. I can't even remember how it was resolved. It was resolved by, I guess it was just resolved by that particular timeline never really actually taking place because they stopped, Linda from puking out a creature that would have, killed Wally. Anyways, just disappointing. Fortunately, it ends on a little bit. Beast World is not bad. Beast World's not bad. Beast World is the best event that started in 2023. It's the best event because of 2 disappointing other events, which were, of course, Lazarus Planet and Night Terrors, which we're going to get into. Speaking of which, let's talk about Night Terrors right now. Well, coming out of Lazarus Planet, which was another huge disappointment in 2023, Lazarus Planet ended. I'll talk about that now. And Lazarus Planet ended with all the Lazarus Reign, creating a bunch of potential new characters in the DC universe because the Lazarus Reign messed with some characters' powers, like Power Girl, making her a telepath. And or temporarily, and it also created a character called Insomnia, a patient that was in Arkham Asylum, and the Lazarus Planet made this character in this insignificant character into Insomnia that essentially went after the Nightmare Stone, and that led to Night Terrors. And the momentum that DC was building up in the first half of 2023 was completely destroyed and decimated by the god-awful series of Night Terrors. Joshua Williamson proved once again he's incapable of handling a big event because the story didn't make any sense. It contradicted itself, just like his Flash run contradicted itself. His plot points kept changing, just like in Dark Crisis, the plot points kept changing, and in Night Terrors, the plot points kept changing. So I won't go into it. Other than that, it was just hugely disappointing. Fire and Ice. Why am I disappointed in Fire and Ice? Well, I almost feel guilty saying I'm disappointed with Fire and Ice because it's actually entertaining. It's funny. It is actually funny. It has entertained me. I've laughed out loud. I've laughed out loud reading it. It's just disappointing to me, and I was compelled to put it on here because I can't get over the fact that DC did not. They should have went with a Fire and Ice and an interpretation of Fire and Ice right out of Tom King's Human Target. This should be an out of continuity tale, either written by Tom King or somebody who is going to be beholden to the Human Target timeline that was created by Tom King, which was fantastic. You got 2 femme fatales who are not afraid to use lethal force, are not afraid to manipulate. They're 2 femme fatales, one innocent, one a little bit more darker. Fire and Ice, perfect. That's what they should have did. Instead, we get this Welcome to Smallville crap. I'm sorry, that the premise is garbage, but is it funny? Writer Joanne Starr, I think she actually does a good job with it, kind of, sort of, despite the fact that it's not the iteration I want. I can't say it's bad. It's actually entertaining, but I just gotta say it's disappointing. It's disappointing to me. But she keeps proving me wrong that it's actually kind of good, but it's still disappointing to me. I'm sorry, I had to put it on the list. Icon and Hardware. Icon and Hardware. Jason and I, when we review DC Comics every week, we've really been enjoying the Milestone universe. We've really been getting into it with Static and Icon, Hardware, Rocket, Blood Syndicate. We're slowly getting into it. It does feel like a different culture. It really does. It's a little bit of a challenge for me sometimes to appreciate the dialogue and to get into the dialogue and what have you. But Icon versus Hardware was a storyline that just really went off the rails because it was so crazy. It was kind of it's balancing a storyline where Hardware goes back in time to change past. knowing that it's going to be disastrous. It is disastrous. He goes back, undoes the damage he does to the timeline, comes back. Meanwhile, that's juxtaposed against a Brainiac subplot, which is also juxtaposed against a subplot with Rocket going to a boarding school in the Swiss Alps or some damn thing. It was, all the storylines didn't really seem to fit or mesh very well together. It was kind of all over the place. It had within it the seeds of a fantastic story that just ended up being disappointing. I won't say it was bad. It was just very disappointing because of what could have been done with it had it been just structured and paced much better. And the art was wonky and a little bit all over the place. Now, Hawkgirl. Oh my God, Hawkgirl. Jackson Axelrod here. The best issue of Hawkgirl is issue 6. Unfortunately, the first 5 issues exist. That's all I got to say. Because the first 5 issues, writer Axelrod goes out of her way to basically, I think, squat and take a dump over all of Kendra Saunders' past, and unnecessarily so. I think it's clear she very clearly intended to, there's an agenda here, and I hate that word agenda. I know you guys hear it a lot, and I'm not someone that, those of you who watch my channel know that I don't generally talk like, throw that word around, but it was very obvious that from the beginning, issue 1, that they want to make Kendra Saunders gay or bisexual or something. There's no question about that. And unfortunately, the way they go about doing it is by having Kendra literally become a man-hater. She hates Carter. Every relationship she's ever had, of course, with men, even in Alien, Martian Manhunter, they're all evil. They're all man. She hates them all. They're man. She hates them all. She blames them for trying to control her, and she won't let it go. And this is the way her dealing with she's dealing with something. Kendra Saunders really comes across like a complete bitch. She never had this problem before, but now Axelrod comes along and says that instead of just being influenced and instead of just having memories of past lives, Axelrod wrongly, and this isn't open to interpretation, she wrongly interprets the past lives of Kendra Saunders as being ghosts that haunt her. They don't. Okay? If I have memories of someone who died, it's not a ghost. It's a memory. There's a very big difference. She doesn't understand the distinction. Instead, she calls them ghosts, and Kendra is haunted by all these. She calls them millions of ghosts of past lives. So they haunt her, and the entire 6 issues is intended to create, well, number one, to highlight Galaxy, who was an LGBT character who really steals the spotlight and helps Kendra essentially utilize. Kendra loses all of her, she sacrifices all of her past lives in order to save the Nth world and to save our universe, to save the universe from the destruction of the Nth world and the destruction of our universe. Because thank God Kendra had ghosts of a million ghosts of past lives, because a sacrifice was needed. And now, leaving aside the fact that you can't sacrifice a ghost, by definition, you can't sacrifice a ghost. Like somebody says you got to give up someone you love. If I told them I'm going to give up my ghost, they would laugh at me. That's obviously, you're going to give up a ghost. Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous, preposterous storyline. Just terrible. But we end up with an Nth world, and at the end, Kendra Saunders is back to where she was when we started, which was she's not going to be the bitch that she was in the first 5 issues. Maybe is she going to be a nice person now? Is she going to return to her personality that she had before Axelrod got a hold of her? Is she going to be likable again instead of a complete bitch? I don't know. I really don't know. I doubt it if Axelrod gets a hold of her. But this was just a massive disappointment of a title. But issue 6 at least ended, well, we have something called an Nth world, which is kind of interesting. Depends what future writers do with it. And Kendra is now the warrior. She's the knight of the Nth world. The knight, protector of the Nth world that is looked over by this character called Aesop. So there's some interesting things there, but getting there, the journey getting there by making Kendra this man-hating bitch was just a god-awful way to go. And the question, it's still a question mark now. What is Kendra's sexuality? DC editorial. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall there, because it was fairly obvious in the first issues that they were making Kendra gay, but they held back. So Kendra's female, butch college roommate in issue 5 actually, or issue 6 actually said she would love to climb Kendra like a tree. But that, there was no climbing involved. But so I guess Kendra is still hetero for now. I guess they're maybe waiting to see how the Alan Scott series works out before they decide to just drop the ball on that one. But we'll see. We'll see. But I say leave Kendra alone. She's leave her alone. She's hetero, clearly. Don't mess with her, and give her a writer who genuinely loves the character and is not going to shit all over every single aspect that came before. Because I gotta say, when it comes to Hawkgirl, how many writers actually do that? Like, every writer always says, and Axelrod can't say this, that, usually when you go on a title, you have to do, even if you don't like the continuity of the character, you can't disregard it. If you disregard it, screw you. And that's why Hawkgirl is my most disappointing of it. One of my most disappointing of 2023. Now, Waller and Wildstorm. Wow, Waller and Wildstorm. This is a Black Label series that I frankly don't know why existed. Amanda Waller was everywhere in 2023. Amanda Waller was the one character that DC has in 2023 that was everywhere and that did nothing and yet kind of did everything, was kind of behind the scenes, orchestrating everything, had her hand in almost every comic in some capacity, and is somehow manipulating multiple characters, and is supposed to be on Earth 3, but she's apparently back at Earth Prime. What is Amanda Waller doing? We don't know. But in the midst of all this, Amanda Waller is apparently back. I mean, we know she's back, and we know from the end of Dark Crisis, she's working with Dr. Hate and a few others, and a few other unknown entities. Well, I guess Peacemaker and Peace Wrecker, and she's created a team, Bloodsport, to basically take out the heroes. Her master plan is to destroy all the heroes of the DC Earth 1. But then why do we get this out of continuity tale of Waller v. Wildstorm? It takes place in the 1980s. It's a completely different history, and it was absolutely. It was actually kind of intriguing at first, but it goes. All it is it's kind of it's an origin story for an Amanda Waller that doesn't exist on our Earth. It's a completely different Earth, and it stars Lois Lane, but not Superman. It stars the classic characters of Wildstorm, and many of them die. It has Deathstroke in it, but it ends up just being the final issue ends up being, it's 4 issues long. It ends up being just a bunch of talking heads. It's extremely political. Which is, and when I say political, I mean in the espionage sense, in the international politics sense. It was a lot of moving. It was Checkmate versus Argus versus the various intelligence agencies that we normally associate with the DC universe, and it became thoroughly uninteresting, difficult to read, difficult to follow, and it was easily one of the most disappointing titles of 2023. And I have to say, having someone who I've read all the Black Label titles that DC had, it is at the bottom of my list as a Black Label title. Huge disappointment. And what a miss, what a strategic error on the part of DC to put that Black Label title out. When you want more attention given to Amanda Waller in 2023, which you have throughout all your titles, and then you put out that Black Label series via Wildstorm has nothing to do and only confuses things. That was just a dumbfounded. Find the editor who approved that and fire him or her. That was awful. Most disappointing, Joker, the man who stopped laughing. I wish this was funny. But Joker, the man, Matthew Rosenberg, man, that guy, I really enjoyed him in 2022. I was looking forward to his Wildstorm, but Wildstorm wasn't bad. Wildstorm didn't make my most disappointing, but it also didn't make my top 25. Wildstorm was just very meh. It was I was disappointed with Firestorm. I was much more disappointed with Joker, the man who stopped laughing. This thing goes on and on and on and on. This is 12 issues of literally two Jokers where you don't know which Joker's which. One of them is a fake Joker, one of them is a real Joker, and they take turns fooling the reader into believing one of them is the real one. And then you got Jason Todd nonsensically running all over the place trying to stop one of the Jokers, but we don't know much sure which one. And then Manhunter comes along, and then all the members of the Bat family at one point make an appearance, and it's just all over the place. And it ends with one of the Jokers, surprise, surprise, apparently dying, and you don't know which one died. So what a waste of paper. It's toilet paper. Absolute horrible disappointment for me. I call it most disappointing, but it's one of the worst of 2023 that DC had out in my mind. Just what a disappointment. It could have been told in one issue. 20 pages at best. It was the most decompressed garbage trite I have read in DC in a very long time. And Matthew Rosenberg, man, I know you're really good at stretching and decompressing things, but I mean, even his Task Force X, which was decompressed, at least had a point. Yeah, it seemed to have some fun moments. It was more enjoyable. But the other thing about the Joker, the man who stopped laughing, is that it had backups that were atrocious. Francisco Francavilla is a great artist, and he even wrote some of the backups. But there was that whole Joker being pregnant thing, which just it's pretty sad in the entire series. People only talk about the one. We're talking about a backup that was nonsensical, where the Joker gets pregnant and literally shits out a kid. I mean, literally. I mean, anyways, just disappointments. And again, it had some interesting moments, because you can go back and Jason and I reviewed it. It had some interesting moments. There was a couple of issues where it felt like it was like I was watching Fast X or something, or Fast and the Furious. But it was just, it didn't have the pull factor. It wasn't interesting. It just wasn't interesting, because there wasn't enough there. The art wasn't very good either. I wasn't a big fan of the art. I can't say I was a fan of the art, and I won't even say the name of the artist. Adventures of Superman, John Kent. This was a huge disappointment for me, because this was an Injustice story. Now, for those of you who like Injustice, as a matter of fact, I know people who love Injustice. I love Injustice, and I hated this story. I just plain did not like this series at all. Mind you, I don't like John Kent. I don't like John Kent as he was written. I don't like how Tom Taylor wrote. I don't like how DC has approached John Kent. First of all, to beat a dead horse again, they should never have aged him up, but they did. So now we're left with this really uninteresting character who is now more perfect than his daddy. And he's I guess he was 17. Then somewhere in 2023, John Kent became 18 years old. Or was that in 2022? But he was 17 for a while. Then he became 18. Adventures of Superman. Remember, we had the Adventures of Superman for those 18 issues. That was canceled because of poor sales, and Tom Taylor, saying that it wasn't. It was. Nobody was buying it. It was canceled for poor sales, and also because Tom Taylor had the excuse that he went 18 issues without John Kent hitting anybody until John Kent finally hit somebody in the final issue, and Tom Taylor bragged about that because John Kent isn't just bisexual, but mostly gay. I mean, he's bisexual, but they never show him as a heterosexual. He's just mostly gay. And he's got a pink-haired boyfriend named Jay Nakamura, right? That's very important. Every second you can always see him kissing Jay Nakamura, right? That's very important. John Kent's always got to be seen kissing Jay Nakamura. So when he's not kissing a pink-haired freak called Jay Nakamura, then he's flying around not punching anybody for 18 issues. So then along comes Adventures of Superman. And now what all the fans, this is a prime example of DC saying, we know what the fans want, and we're still not going to give the fans what they want. And of course, we never got what we wanted in Adventures of Superman. We wanted John Kent to confront Ultraman. And did John Kent confront Ultraman? Not really. Before he can confront him, before anything could actually happen, before they could talk about what happened in the volcano, and before we could have an actual conversation between Ultraman and John Kent, Tom Taylor scripted it very conveniently so that Injustice Superman shows up and kills Ultraman, which is absolutely stupid. Why would you want to kill Ultraman? Ultraman is a key character to Earth 3. He's an evil Superman. He's an awesome character. So he had it was a dumb story. It was a dumb script with Ultraman going around killing all the other Supermans in the, which is stupid. It's just stupid. Stupid. Why do that? Why mess with the multiverse like that with Ultraman? Ultraman nonsensically just going insane again? No. Show a little bit more respect to the character. But no, you want to prop up Injustice by shoehorning in John Kent so that John Kent can be perfect. And of course, Lois Lane in the Adventures of Superman is both Red Tornado, Earth 2 Lois Lane, but also the Earth Prime Lois Lane, where she confirms that her son is perfect. She tells John, you're perfect. I don't know how you did it. You've been psychologically tormented for 7 years in a volcano by Ultraman, but you're perfect, and you're completely unscathed. So Tom Taylor, not only did he not give an explanation for how John Kent could overcome that torture, but he just basically was saying, he's perfect. He's perfect. No, he's perfect. He's immune to torture. He's immune to psychological torture. You can put him in 7 years in a volcano with the evilest Superman on the planet, Ultraman. He's not going to be affected by that. He's going to be absolutely perfect. And he's gay. No, he's bisexual, but we're only going to show him gay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and he doesn't hit people. And when he hits people, he feels real bad about it. Okay. You see why John Kent is somebody who nobody's interested in? And of course, they made John Kent is Electric Man now. He's got electric lightning bolts out of his hand because you got to distinguish him from Superman. Why? Because he's an embarrassment to his father. This is something that his father would never tell him. No father wants to tell their son they're a disappointment. But I mean, obviously, Clark feels that. But what do? You're going to say, John, seriously, buddy, you were traumatized in a volcano. Now you're dating a pink-haired guy? Come on. Not a connection there? Are you sure there's not something wrong? Come on. You could have been dating Saturn Girl. You're telling me you went from Saturn Girl to pink-haired guy? Come on. That doesn't make sense. Forget it. Anyways, so I'm a little disappointed. Where was Saturn Girl? Why doesn't Saturn Girl come and, have a little fun with John Kent? Help right that ship. Okay, he's bisexual. We got the gay thing. Okay, now why don't we try do the hetero thing for a while now there, John? You got Saturn Girl waiting in the wings. Have some fun. And dump Jay Nakamura. Good God! Oh, and you see the lipstick they put on the pig of Jay Nakamura? I mean, now he works for Steel, or is it John Henry? He works for John Henry Irons now, or is that Mister Terrific? No, it's John Henry Irons. Anyways, lipstick on the pig, gentlemen. So another one here. Young Justice. Young Justice. What can I say about Young Justice that hasn't already been said by people who are far more insulting than me? Look. Young Justice and Tim Drake Robin, I'm going to talk about them together. No question that they were unquestionably the second and the first were most disappointing of 2023. Young Justice Megan Fitzmartin attempted to do with Young Justice. What she was trying to do with Young Justice was to try to explain to people or try to create a situation where all the characters of Young Justice, that they're not the same characters they were when they were in the 90s. In the 90s, the Young Justice series, written by Mark Waid, by the way, was fantastic. It was fantastic. It was funny and all kinds of, it felt like you were watching a blooper reel of superheroes. It was just a lot of fun to read. But they were also immature, and it was also very 90s. And of course, the times were different in the 90s. You could have a conversation with a woman and not at the conclusion of that conversation call your lawyer. You know, that kind of thing. So you could just relax. And these were kids. But for some reason, Megan Fitzmartin wanted to make sure that all of us felt bad for having liked Young Justice in the past. And she kept telling us through the dialogue and through this ridiculous conversations that we're having with Robin and Impulse and Connor Kent and Cassie Sandsmark, you know, where the conversations were, they were having conversations with their past selves, which were created by the son of Mixiez Patelik, where they basically apologize for being jerks in the past, and they and making the reader feel that we're pathetic for ever having liked Young Justice in the first place. I've rarely have I read a series where I felt the writer wanted the reader to not like earlier iterations of the characters. It was unbelievable. It was just just an absolute. It was a slap in the face. It was a slap in the face. I could be more impolite about it, but it was easily one of the worst series. In fact, it's probably because of the direct insult to the fan. It's probably number one for most disappointing. It's that bad. Now, Tim Drake Robin. Tim Drake Robin is just a mess. It was just badly written. Now, Bernard, those who listen to my reviews with Jace every week, I always joke about Bernard and Jay Nakamura. Jay Nakamura being the pink-haired freak, and Bernard being the, Bernard, tough guy Bernard. And you can tell he's effeminate because it actually bleeds off the page because he loves Tim Drake. Tim will always be there to protect me. And of course, that's how it's written. And Fitzmartin, oh my God, she's just doubling down on that. I don't know, I get a sense that Fitzmartin, I guess she thinks that's how gay insecure men must talk, I guess. And maybe they do. I don't know. I don't care. That I know. But I mean, to read it on the page, like, you know, because even if that's how they talk, why would you want to put that on the page? Like, it's a comic book, so make it interesting. But it's the villain, chaos monsters. Robin decides to go for some reason. Tim Drake, after Dark Crisis, decides to go and live on the marina of Gotham. I didn't even know Gotham had I guess Gotham has a harbor, but he goes and lives on a shithole part of the Gotham Harbor. He lives in a shithole dilapidated boat, and where him and Bernard get together every night. But how they got together was interesting because Bernard follows Robin, and then Robin he sees Robin changing in Tim Drake's boat, on Drake's boat, and doesn't make the connection until the very last 19th issue, where it's revealed that Bernard isn't the idiot we all knew he was. Too late, he's an idiot. But anyways, Bernard's parents, don't even get me started on them. Bernard's parents, when Tim Drake meets Bernard's parents, a fire starts in the diner, and Tim literally walks away from the fire. So does Bernard. I mean, it's so bad. It's so badly paced. It's so badly done. At times it had decent artists on it, but the writing is just plain utterly atrocious. And this is the sad part here is I'm not going to. I'm far more diplomatic when I review these things with Chase, because I think that calls for diplomacy. I don't have to be diplomatic. I can be less diplomatic here. The simple fact of the matter is that it's very frustrating when I read utter trash and I'm out of synonyms for garbage. Absolute trash. Terrible, terrible writing. I didn't. There wasn't an ounce of Tim Drake Robin that, in my view, made the character more compelling. It denigrated the character in my mind. Denigrated the character. Made the character less than who Tim Drake was. Made him into an idiot. An idiot. Made his boyfriend Bernard look like a complete idiot. I mean, why do I criticize Bernard? Because he's a shitty character. He's unlikable. He's weak. He's pathetic. And there's no reason. Why would Tim Drake be attracted to somebody who's weak and pathetic? If Lois Lane was weak and pathetic and always failing and being a loser and being and always whining, we would wonder why. What does Clark Kent see in her? Because if Clark Kent saw a weak and pathetic Lois Lane and he was attracted to her, that would mean Clark is pathetic, because like attracts like. You attract who you are, right? So Tim Drake is attracted to a loser, an insecure loser. And I guess it's supposed to be heroic that Tim Drake is propping up his insecure boyfriend. It was just absolutely, utterly disgraceful. But I guess, I don't know, can the readership relate to that? God damn, guys. If you like that comic, and I mean, if you can relate to Tim Drake, see a psychiatrist immediately. Seriously, that's free advice for you. Yeah, no charge. All right, so Batgirls. Oh God. Grade 1 level art, like it's drawn for superhero girls, with imagine a bunch of little girls with chasing a serial killer. They look like they're drawn like they're 12, 13 years old. And then one issue they look 12 years old. Another issue they look 17 years old. Another issue they look 15 years old. And they live in a dilapidated shithole, but not on the marina near Tim. They just live in a shithole part of Gotham. And Barbara Gordon, Oracle, who's a computer genius, just has a little laptop there in a little shithole apartment, living with these two other doughheads, Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown. I used to be a huge Cassandra Cain fan. I still am. She's actually my favorite. The old iteration of Cassandra Cain was my favorite character of the DCU. Thank God for Kelly Thompson, who's coming along with Birds of Prey. Cassandra Cain can now finally be redeemed a little bit from the garbage character she was in Batgirls. Good grief. But just all over the place, Batgirls. All over the place. A terrible mixture. The wrong artist with the wrong creative team. The Clunrads with Jorge... oh man, I forget his name. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It was a terrible collaboration between artist and between concept and art. Because if you want to tell the story of 17 or 18-year-old girls battling serial killers, then don't draw them like they look like they're teenagers. It didn't work. It was off. The dialogue was terrible. It was all over the place. It dealt with the magistrate when that storyline was already done. It was just awful. It was all over the place. There was like 2 issues that were tolerable because Lady Shiva showed up, and the one issue was all silent, so we didn't have to read dialogue. And so there was a couple of issues that weren't bad, but for the most part, just another huge disappointment. Finally, we get to Lazarus Pit, underscoring one of DC's central problems in 2023, and that is their big events. It started essentially with Lazarus Pit, and Night Terrors was awful too. And Lazarus Pit, written by Mark Waid, wasn't even that bad per se as a concept. Mark Waid in the series proper did a decent job sort of scripting it, basically. Batman and Robin, flowing out of the Batman and Robin and the Monkey Prince crossover, where the Monkey Prince is battling the, oh my God, whatever the hell, the Monkey King or whatever the hell it was. I don't know. It was a crossover between the Monkey Prince's universe and it ends up where they end up, Lazarus Mountain explodes and Lazarus resin infuses itself into the clouds. The clouds surround the earth, and then it rains Lazarus rain. And ultimately, it screws up magic. So uh, the uh, the boundaries between science and magic were screwed up. So if you were a hero that had science-based powers, you might end up with magic-based powers. If you had magic-based powers, you might end up with science-based powers. So science and magic were all screwed up, and it was kind of a cool concept at first, but just frankly, nothing particularly interesting was done with it. It just wasn't as fun as it could be, and but the series proper was okay. The tie-ins were absolutely awful. I think probably the most. I mean, we ended up with something like we ended up with Insomnia. Insomnia was a character that was created by Lazarus Rain. He was a patient at Arkham Asylum. He ended up in Night Terrors, being the main villain in the Night Terrors. Terrible. And then we got Circuit Breaker was probably the most is the only character, one of the characters I can think of that came out of Lazarus. Circuit Breaker being he has a connection to the Still Force, so he's a Flash character. He was a checkbox character, let's face it. Another diversity pick by DC because I don't know, is he gender confused or is he, I'm not sure if he's gender confused or if he's just like a guy a transvestite or whatever the hell he is. But he's a character that he's an actor who dresses up in strange clothes and I don't think he's that bright, which makes sense if he controls the still force, but he can control energy and he's slow. He's just slow and not particularly bright, not particularly interesting either. And it was a terrible tie-in. It was really, really badly written. I just I remember the bad ones particularly well. But in any event, Lazarus Pit, Night Terrors, DC, man. Thank God DC at least got one big event in the year that was tolerable. There shouldn't be any for 5 years. There should be a 5-year moratorium on events. But Beast World at 2023, we're halfway through Beast World, and so Beast World is at least tolerable. And that's not a bad event. And it redeemed the beginnings of Titans, which was an absolute train wreck of boredom. So that's it for most disappointing titles of DC for 2023. Guys, tell me what you think. I'm sure some of you disagree with me, and I know I can be a little bit harsh and on some of these things. I could have been substantially harsher, but so be it. I look forward to any comments that you might make, I think, and let me know. And I'm going to be coming up very soon following this video with my top 25 DC titles of 2023. I might break that video up because there's a lot to say there too, because I think DC actually had a pretty damn good year. I think there was 25 solid titles that I enjoyed at DC, and so even though these were disappointing titles here, I think that the good far outweighed the bad for DC in 2023, and I think things are looking up going into 2024. So guys, let me know what you think about DC titles, the ones that disappointed you in 2023. And until then, happy holidays again, and happy 2024. And yeah, this is where I actually look, because I have this screen in front of me where I have to click on. I need to click off my image. First, I click off my logo, like that. Then I click off my image, and then once I click off my image, it's all over.